The time where I really just started to crumble. So for me, anxiety was the the biggest symptom I was experiencing, and it was quite extreme. I got to a place where I didn't want to leave the house. I really had to force myself to show up every day.
Have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt like the universe just kicked you square in the junk? Well, from my experience, these low moments can set us up for some amazing things if we have the right mindset, the right attitude to find the lesson, to look inside ourselves and try to become a better version of ourselves. My name's Nathaniel Burke, and I'm the host of the show Kicked in the Junk. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for being here, Nicole.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. You are a life coach. You are doing hypnotherapy. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Make sure I get the right words right.
Yeah, that's right.
Me and my wife do some of your meditations. They're wonderful. We love them. We get them every week. So that's super awesome. And yeah, maybe you want to just tell me a bit more about what you're doing, because I know the field you're in a bit. I've seen some of your stuff. And I'm always so curious because everybody has a story and a history.
Sure.
And there's a reason what got him to this place. And you're starting to do these things now, starting to take off, which is amazing. So yeah, maybe just dive a little more detail what you do specifically, and we can kind of go into what led you there.
Sure. So I'm a founder and an owner of my own company, which is
Perfect.
Transform Services. And I work with my own sort of process that I've developed over the last few years that utilizes a combination of hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming,
Cool.
Imagination, visualization, and breath work.
Sounds like things all those I love.
Yeah, and they're great. So I use a combination of them just to help people reawaken the healer within themselves, and to come back to self-love and self-trust.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So I guess my question is then, what, the name of the podcast is Kicked in the Junk.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
And I love it because it's so true. We've all had those. And sometimes they're big moments. Sometimes there's just this ongoing thing. Sometimes you get multiple in a row. And typically what I'm finding is that most people that have these moments, they have these really hard lows that lead them to something else. So I feel like that might be the reason why you're doing this. But maybe if you want to elaborate a little bit, what was your kick moment?
Sure.
Kick in the junk moment?
Yeah.
You've had one or two?
I've definitely had a few kicked in the junk moments in my life. But I'll speak to one that comes to top of mind. Yeah. It was, let me think of the time. So probably a decade ago now. Our youngest son was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Yeah, and to backtrack a little bit, before he got diagnosed with this, I was already in an extremely high stress state. I was working on minimal sleep, trying to finish my university degree, working part-time as a personal trainer, and had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and so I was already pretty stretched.
You can hear it in your voice how stretched you were.
Yeah, it's interesting how when you recall, a past experience, how it shows up, right, in the voice. But when Benjamin was diagnosed with this rare form of cancer, you just go into that mode of taking care of him and making sure everyone else is okay. So it was a real kicked in the junk moment for our whole family.
I couldn't imagine the feeling of one of your kids having that. I mean, I know my brother actually had that with his daughter, and unfortunately she didn't end up making it. But I couldn't imagine being in that place. That's like it's a
real devastating spot.
And it's even tougher because I think, if it's my life, and that's not to sound selfish, but it's me. It's like, okay, I know I can do these things. I know this. Yeah. When it's someone else, it's like, you're trying so hard.
Yeah. It's really was a tough time, but Benjamin, Benjamin.
And I coach him, so so there's a good story. This story ends well, thank God.
He's great. He's healthy. He's thriving.
He's an athlete. I love it.
Yeah, he's definitely an athlete. That's for sure. But yeah, during that time, we helped Benjamin move through his treatment, and his older brother obviously too, helping him through, such a difficult time.
Yeah.
And then once Benjamin's treatment was finished, this is the time where I really just started to crumble.
Right.
So for me, anxiety was the the biggest symptom I was experiencing, and it was quite extreme. I got to a place where I didn't want to leave the house. I really had to force myself to show up every day.
That's tough.
So yeah, I moved through traditional talk therapy initially. I've always been someone who likes more of a natural approach to or holistic approach to health and well-being. So antidepressants were prescribed to me, but I really refused to take them.
Right. And what was that for you? I mean, and I say this because I run in the same vein.
Yeah.
For me, pills, surgery, it's your last option, right? And there's a time and place, and it's wonderful for that time and place. But in my opinion, it's the last option. So what was that for you? Like, where did that come from?
It's something that it's just always been part of who I am, to be honest. I don't know that I have a reason necessarily, but I just had a strong knowing that that's not for me. And not really too much of an opinion about, whether it's good or bad, but just a knowing.
Something here. Interesting.
Yeah, I see it has a place. Yeah, like treatment has its place. I mean,
totally.
it literally saved Benjamin's life.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's definitely a beautiful part of the world we live in, and for health, well-being, care.
Yes.
But for me, it was not something that really, struck a chord.
Totally. And it's funny. It's interesting because my wife has been through extreme anxiety. I fortunately never experienced that. She's been to the point where she couldn't leave her house for months, and she shared this before. So I guess my question is, what were some things that you did to navigate that? Because that is rocky territory.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine, I always try to put myself in that spot. Okay, what would that feel like? What would that feel like? It feels like there's no light, is what I've heard. You're in the muck. How did you work through this?
Yeah, so I did talk therapy, which was helpful, right?
Yes.
It was helpful to be able to talk to someone and share what was on my heart, and to start to discover that there was more of an anxious pattern that was there before Benjamin's diagnosis. So that wasn't
this
something...
just kind of triggered it.
Yeah, it sort of brought me to an edge where I really needed to address what was already there.
Right.
So that I found interesting.
Yep.
It was helpful to a certain point.
Okay.
The other things that I did for myself were yoga, just sort of with an app, because I didn't want to go out and about. As a personal trainer at that time, I already had like a good movement practice, but I didn't have the energy to work out in the same way. So it just was very gentle, very restorative yoga in the mornings. I started to tap back into meditation. It was something that I had looked at, probably 10 years prior to that, and had stopped, just due to life, as we do. And journaling and just all the things that I could grasp onto. But it reached a place where I really wasn't making any progress. And my husband, Rob, who you know too, he went to a business breakfast and met a hypnotherapist there. And he came home and said, I think that you should go and meet this man. He seems really great. He's helping people with all sorts of, anxiety. He specializes in post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to go. And
what do you think that was?
I think I'm so part of my journey has been having to trust support and care. So there's lots of elements, right? I've been kicked in the junk a lot, but this is just one of those times, and this is the the long story
Yeah.
for it, but I've always been naturally interested in spirit and you know, mindfulness, meditation, how
Yes.
people function from their brain and their thoughts. And this man crossed my path 2 days later.
Oh.
By chance.
But
Yeah, I was loading groceries in the back of the car with Rob at our local supermarket, and he walked past us and recognized Rob and said, "Oh, Rob, hi." And I was like, I'm listening. So
all right. It's so funny because I've heard that before, actually, on a different podcast I was listening to, is if you pay attention and you're aware of the synchronicities, the universe is always winking at you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So when you see these things, like, and you hear stuff like this, you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
right? So clearly there was there for a reason.
Absolutely. And he's still a really good friend of mine.
Awesome.
I still see him for hypnosis, but we're more, you know, a mentor and friend for each other now, which is great. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it led me to make an appointment with Jerry, and that appointment literally changed my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were some of the big things you noticed with that change? Because I've been there before. I've done my work and continue to do my work, but I've had that big like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it on the show a few times of, you know, being on the bed, lying on I was doing somatic therapy, lying on the bed. Literally, the therapist said nothing and just had her hand underneath my liver and I think my head or and I just started bawling for like an hour. I swear to God, it was an hour of like heavy, crazy crying. So I've had that.
Yeah.
And so you've had this, which is cool. So I want to hear your side and what that was about.
Okay, I'm happy to share it with you. So this first appointment I went to, Jerry works, you know, similar way that I do, just with hypnosis and NLP. And, you know, if you haven't experienced hypnotherapy before or hypnosis, it's a deeply relaxing experience for the most part. It can also be, you know, quite emotional. But for me, my experience that first time was, oh my gosh, like I didn't know I could relax in this way. Like I didn't know this existed.
That's cool.
And so I entered into this trance state, this, I like to call it deep rest state. And Jerry was just talking and using metaphors and stories and suggestions because the subconscious is highly receptive to positive suggestion in that state.
Yeah, the alpha state. Is that right?
It's a theta state.
Theta state, sorry.
Well, we move between them, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So alpha is like a daydream state.
Daydream state, yes. Okay.
And then there's theta and delta is deeper. But you're in, you know, you go between alpha and theta in hypnosis, really. But
very similar meditation too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So it just, you know, even just to kind of put a pin in that for a second, it's like it's even just the work of slowing down, of taking this head on, right? And but in a way of like, and I think that's maybe the caveat there is like it's not a like. And then something else, I'm going to go in there and fix it. Like, especially, maybe it's just me, but I'm pretty sure it's most men. It's like, we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
We're going to get in there with our tools and we're going to fix it.
Sure.
Not that I'm a tool guy at all. But it's just, we want to fix things. And it's like, when you realize, like, no, sometimes, yes, you do, you need that drive, but you need the subtlety of the environment.
Yeah.
You need the subtlety of the slowing down and just allowing for these things to come and move through.
Absolutely. I think it's a profound state that most of us have forgotten in the world that we live in.
Yes.
I call it, you know, magic state of stillness in my practice. And we have these 4 states that we move through.
Right.
You know, there's the state of knowledge, the state of will, and the state of courage. And the 4th one is that state of stillness. And
I like that.
Yeah, and the 4th one is one that I really believe is forgotten, but so highly necessary. And that's the state that changed me in that experience with Jerry.
And that's it's so wonderful because it's so needed. I talk about this lots. Me and Emily ran a meditation workshop, and I've been meditating for almost every day for 6-7 years now, as long
beautiful.
And that was something that really hit home with me and was like so profound and so eye-opening was that, one, our lives are so packed with stuff where we feel like we're packed with stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Oh my God, I'm so busy.
Go.
Thoughts. And then we add in our phones to constantly distract us and stimulate us.
Yep.
And then when we're done with our phone, we go to the TV and we turn on the TV and we get distracted and get stimulated and whatever. So we're constantly going. And then when I talk to people and I'm like, and then people come for help and it's, okay, well, I want you to practice meditating. Well, I can't do that. And part of me is going like, well, I've been there, I know it. Well, I don't have time. Well, you do have time.
Yeah.
You actually have a ton of time. Look at your screen time on your phone. How much time do you crank out there?
Yeah.
I think the average is like 5 hours, or I think 2.5 hours, 3 hours on social media a day. 2 to 3 hours on social media is average Canadians.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me.
Which is crazy. So there is time. But the thing I found was really cool was as soon as, I was very similar. I was taking care of the kids. I was working. Go home, cook, do all this stuff. And I don't have time for this. But as soon as I started doing it, it was so hard because I was like, oh my God, I have so much to do, but I kept doing it. And I only do like 5-minute meditations. But it was like, wait a minute. I come after like day 3 or 4, I went, oh, I only have this and this to do. Oh, that's easy. Yeah. And my brain was like, bling.
Yeah.
And it was like all this fog got wiped away.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I was able to take on my day. The rest of my day with so much clarity, and I felt like I had way more time. Yeah. Way more time and way more presence, which are two of the most precious things on earth, I think. In my opinion, those are the two most precious things you can give somebody, your time and your presence. So I was like, my glass is more full. I have these wonderful things now. Okay, what do I do with them?
And I think that's really beautiful to bring that up and to maybe highlight that it's like 5 minutes, like literally 5 minutes of just coming to sit and meditate, to be with your breath, to connect to the present moment, to arrive. It brings you to the luminosity of the mind, and also to discover that time is really a bit of an illusion. Yeah.
Yes.
That 5 minutes is, expanded.
And that's so funny because me and Emily were talking about that earlier today on our walk with the dogs. Was
interesting?
Was that when, and this is the hidden, I haven't really talked about it on the podcast yet, but this is the hidden gem, in my opinion, of meditating, because you have the fact that it can actually help you regrow your brain cells. It's calming, your cortisol levels drop, all these amazing things, the manifesting side of it, which is my favorite and so much fun. And I have a very vivid imagination, so like going down that field is just fun and easy.
Sure, yeah.
You're more present, but the really hidden one that I found was so interesting is that you have more time. And what I mean by that is anybody that's meditated and done it enough, I've had multiple meditations, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where you're like,
absolutely, it's
a 10-minute meditation, 20, whatever it is, and you start going down some thought in your brain, and you're there, but sometimes you get the popcorn thoughts, right? And anybody listening, you will have those popcorn thoughts.
The mind thinks.
And I say, and my grace to myself after reading it, because I always thought my brain had to meditate, only be here now for no matter what. Ideally, yes, but it takes a lot of time. It takes practice, and sometimes your brain just wants to do this. Yeah. So it's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But the cool part is when you start doing that and you're kind of getting into your visualization, whatever. And then you go off into this world of whatever you're thinking of, whatever you're meditating on. Sometimes it's something you want in the future. Sometimes it's something in the past. Hopefully it's something that you want in the future. You'll come out and I'm like, oh my God, the meditation's over. It's been like 30 seconds or like a minute. And like that felt like 5-10 minutes. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this, how time gets stretched and is like moves when you're in those state, which is so fascinating. On the flip, I've had other ones where I meditate and it's gone in like a minute, and we were there for half an hour. Yeah. So more people have had that, but less people I think have experienced the first one where time just stretches. Yeah. Which is super fascinating.
It's awesome. Yeah. We have this accessible, I like to call it a playground within ourselves. And I utilize that point as the subconscious mind. Yes. Yeah. And there are other other ways and other words that people utilize for this, but for me it's around the subconscious and accessing the quantum field in that subconscious realm. Yeah.
Awesome. So I feel like you know more about it than I do, but I want to dive into that field a little bit more.
Sure.
What does that look like, feel like, from your perspective when you're meditating or when you're guiding someone through their meditation process? Because this isn't actually where I intended to go down, but now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, this is awesome. Let's dive into this and talk about it.
It's fun. I think that this is a conversation that I'm really excited to have with you, because it's something that I don't know that it's talked about freely as much as what it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bring out some learning.
So again, my understanding was the quantum realm being that, and I don't mean, it's funny because my brain splits. It goes quantum realm, Marvel, and all these movies that we've been told, and then another part of me is like, no, what you've learned and educate, and your experiences. So just this space where your consciousness can move through different places, essentially, through your, I call it, for lack of a better term, your imagination. But you combine that with the time being stretched. And being able to play out all these scenarios in your head in a matter of moments. When it feels like a long time is a matter of moments. So, that was kind of like how I work with it, understanding that and what I do know is your intention, so your heart, your emotion behind whatever you're meditating, whatever you're manifesting, that is the wave. Your intention being the message behind it.
Sure.
That's kind of my short and sweet version of it, but I want to hear yours and how you help people navigate that and get to that place.
Yeah, so there are a few ways I help people navigate it, and I work one-on-one, right? So it's very individual, and I'm very in tune with the language that they'll utilize themselves, and I think that's important in one-on-one work. But as a generalization, and how I would like to explain it here, maybe it might be helpful to go through the process that I work with. Intention, definitely having that, let's say, wanting to be a certain way, wanting to open up to more self-love, step into yourself, be who you really are, starting to let go of the constructs or the limitations or the beliefs that have been holding you back. Right? And, identifying those. A common one is, I'm not enough. Like so many people walk around going, I didn't do this well enough. I'm not good enough here. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. Like
the list goes on, and we can all, everybody. I feel like you can say not enough, and everybody's like, right. I've done that. Right.
But the truth is, you are enough, right? And always have been enough, and it's definitely part of my journey that continues.
Mine too.
And I think that's also a valid thing to bring up is, the work is consistently done. There isn't an end point. It just gets more fun, and we just enjoy the hard times that come sometimes.
You just learn to navigate those problems better. Bigger problems better, right?
I think so. I think we start to see it from a different perspective at a certain point. But I can hear myself getting off track a little bit.
Okay.
Coming to that intention, I guide people into a deep rest. So, relax the body, just let the mind be. Like, it's going to think. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to believe every thought that you have.
Those are two things. I love how you just glazed over them. Like, those are really key points. It's one, and I always tell this to anybody, is like, don't chase it. Whatever, if it comes, that's fine. But don't dive down the rabbit hole. And I thought it was really, you just kind of glazed over it so nonchalant. It was just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true.
No,
that is so big, and I think more people need to hear it. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true, because I've been there, you've been there, everybody I feel like has had that where they stop, it must be. And then when you don't check it at your gate, your subconscious gatekeeper doesn't check it properly, it just also becomes true. And you're like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's noticing them, right? Like observing them and you know, learning to have a non-judging acknowledgement to the thoughts that you are thinking, you know, just being curious about them.
Yes.
But when you're entering into those deep rests, and being guided can be a lot easier for people than doing it yourself.
Yes.
But
I would agree.
ultimately, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Yeah. So if you come to see me in my office and I guide you, you're learning within yourself, you know, and that's what we're opening, is that you're the healer within. You have the access to who you really are. It's all there. So where do we go? We go within. So guiding within, letting the thoughts just go. The conscious part of the mind is the thinking mind. It's the part of you that makes decisions, that criticizes, that analyzes, that judges. And, you know, that's the part we want to just give a little rest. It needs a rest, and the subconscious can then open in a relaxed state. Think of it like scales almost, where the subconscious will raise up to a more dominant position. And it can't analyze, it can't judge, it can't criticize. It can only take in what you believe to be important and true. And so when you're holding an intention, a healed state or a way of being or a new belief, and that's your intention, I guide people into the feeling of that. And there's some pre-discussion around this first, which is really important. But it's that feeling, that energy of that you already exists out there in the quantum field. There are multi-dimensional versions of yourself out there already. And it's just aligning with the energy of that version and feeling it. And change only occurs in the present moment. So when you're in that deep rest, you are here now, but you are also experiencing the energy of that you in the quantum space.
I feel like you're hypnotizing me right now by saying so. I'm like, damn, like this is like, I want to like pin on that. You said it. It was so good. I want you to keep going, but
sure,
change only happens in the present.
It only
and
happens
how many
now.
And it's so it's so critical to understand that, and how many people live in the past. A lot of people do, unfortunately, and we all have, probably know 3 or 4 people off the top of your head that you can think of that do. But you know, I'm helping. This is why they need it so much. It's like helping them understand, like, right now is what you have. Right. So like, what do you want? Do you want to keep remembering that? Because Dr. Joe talks about it a lot. Says how when you keep going back there, you're just rewiring your body to keep being there. Right. Or you can rewire your body to be a different version.
Right. Thoughts, you know, we're constantly, you know, can be taken into the past, right, into an experience, and that is a big part of what happens in hypnosis in some situations, right? We might travel back through past lives sometimes, but for this discussion, let's just say we do inner child work, so you move back through the past to your younger self. So, but you're doing that in the now when you're in that state. And being the now meaning like you're feeling it. You're seeing it. You're hearing what you heard back then. You're encompassing it all. You're feeling what was, but you're also bringing in that healed intention. So you're able to bring healing to that past version of yourself, which you know is going to create change in your daily life right now, because that part of you that has been rotating that same program, that same direction, the body's response to it, it's changed in that moment. By traveling back to that younger version of you and giving that you exactly what you needed at that time.
I've heard a really good saying, and it was like, be the parent you wish you could be to yourself right now. Right, if you were to go back, and
it's a beautiful saying.
And it's a really good, you know, to kind of step away from that a bit, but just on a very simple level, it's like, right, okay, maybe I don't understand the, you know, the inner workings of this. I don't know how to get to that state, but to even just something as simple as look back at yourself and things that happened to you in the past, and if you could replay it, watch that video in your head. Maybe, you know, like maybe you were hit as a child, maybe you were attacked, maybe you had something traumatic happen.
Yeah.
Could you replay that video with a different story, with a different ending?
Yes,
right, and
for
to
sure.
let, and again, that's just my 2 cents on it, but just in a very simple way to even just address it. It's like, right, you know what, this could have happened. That would actually really to allow yourself to move through it and past that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can't change what's happened in the past, yes, but what we can do is change the way we perceive it. Yeah, it's a perspective shift. Yeah,
yes.
I always say to
That's
anyone
a really
that sees me, it's like I'm not here to change you, right?
Yeah.
You're already enough. You're already who you're meant to be, right here and right now, right? As you show up today.
Yeah.
But you maybe can't see a perspective that is available to you, and so that's really the beauty in working in the subconscious and in that quantum space, is it allows you to come to a different perspective. And I work only in those higher vibrational places. So love, self-love, compassion, self-appreciation, self-trust, peace, calmness, joy.
Totally.
Yeah.
The one me and Emily always go to, and I find the easiest, we've talked about it so many times on here. I call it my cheat code, because I can just press that button. It's just gratitude.
Oh, gratitude is huge.
And it's something I do with the kids at the dinner table all the time, because, you know, they get whiny, they get this, whatever, and we can all get there, but it's just
for sure.
like, let's just stop and like, let's tell me 3 things you're grateful for today. Sometimes the surfacey stuff, but it doesn't matter.
No.
It's just a practice of it.
Yeah, it's just, it redirects the brain, right? Like our human experience, we are going to have times where we complain, where we get upset, where we're angry, and that's okay.
Yes.
But it's being able to know that you can change that state literally in an instant.
Yes.
And in my own experience with hypnosis, that was something that was so profoundly life-changing for me. It's like, I just went from being completely anxious and not able to barely get to this appointment to leaving feeling light. Yeah. Like just feeling like in that 1 hour. Yeah. Which felt like I'd done years and years of work in that hour. So
that's amazing. Yeah. And the cool part about it is that it's not within or without reach. Like you can attain that. Yeah. It's there. Yeah. Not just for you, but for anybody.
Absolutely.
And yes, ideally it's one, sometimes it's more. Yeah. But I think the big thing there, I talk to people lots, is like, is your intention one and your expectation. Yeah. Because if you're going there, and this is what I've noticed, especially this works, like if you're going there going like, one session, I'm going to be good. This is perfect. It's like, well, might not happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but I wouldn't expect that. Versus going there with just an open mind and open heart and just being like, I'm just here because I want to be better. Yeah. And that was the what I had for myself, my own experience, was I just want to be better. Yeah. And whatever happened just happened. I had no expectations, clearly. Right?
And I think that's part of it, right? Is that we do have all these expectations that we ultimately can become trapped and limited by within ourselves. And it is just being open and coming to see and explore and understand and know yourself from within. Yeah. Like that we're so capable as human beings of so much more than we can really even begin to imagine sometimes. Yes. Yeah, it's all there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I give an example of, sometimes I'll use this with, like, still coach high school football and U12, and actually a good example is one of the kids during our game just this last weekend, and at halftime he was like, oh man, I'm having a terrible game, oh man, I'm having a bad day, blah blah blah, such a bad game. And we were winning, but I went over and I'm like, why are you saying that? He's like, because I'm having a bad game. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of second half do I have? And he's kind of stopped and he's like, I want to have a good game. And you say it again, what kind of half? I was like, yeah, you want to have your best half yet? He's like, yeah, I'm going to have a best half of football yet. Yeah. And he just kind of like, and you see it was like, it was just, again, he's a high school kid, so he's 17, 16, I think, but just to see the switch go from like, all I have to do is turn on that light. And it's like, yeah. And so this is what I try to explain to people, is like, we all have had moments in our lives where we are a goddess in our own power and just thriving. Sure. And you're like, I can do anything, and I'm, I would say it's like my King Kong moment. It's like I can take on anything and I'm winning. Yeah. And we've all had moments where we are feel awful, terrible, like we don't deserve to even be here.
Absolutely.
Right? We've all had that.
Yeah.
And when you say it, you realize like, right, it's there. I get to pick. And that was realization that I've had to have for myself and helping people work through is that exactly that. It's like, so if this can be true and this side can be true, this is amazing because you can just pick to be that one. Doesn't mean it's never going to happen, but if you constantly putting your attention, your energy to being this best possible version of you, anything's possible. Right? Or you'll just open up yourself for a whole avenue of things, beautiful things that come your way.
Absolutely. And my mind is coming to a lot of things as you speak there, and it's there's choice, right? Like we can choose. We are the creator of our own reality. We really are. We're the ones writing the story.
I feel like people need to hear that one more time. We're the ones writing the story.
We are the ones that are writing the story. And yes, there are things that happen outside of our control.
Yes.
But again, it's how you move through that.
Yeah.
And I think an important piece here is to remember that feeling is healing. And that,
I like that.
And that, a lot of us can be trapped in a limitation of avoiding and distracting the hard times, which can feed the energy of avoidance, which isn't necessarily fabulous for most people.
Totally.
I want to say that it's not a great trait to have.
That's a big one. I know I've done that. That was my go-to. I just will ignore and I'll go this way.
Right.
And it's, for some people it comes easy. For me, that's easy. I can ignore that, no problem. I'm just going to put all my energy over here. So my question then for you, because me and my wife talk about this lots, is I've heard that there's no emotional attachment or reaction to a negative experience in your life. That's when you can kind of move through it and you're called the green light to give it, to talk about it. But my question then is, how do you, how much emotion, how much? And I know it's a loaded question because there's no distinctive answer, but what's your like telltale signs? What have you seen that, Jimmy had this terrible experience in the past, and he needs to work through it, but he's putting a ton of time into the past, or a ton of his attention into the past. What's the balance for you? Have you seen, and what are some of the things and maybe some ways that you've helped navigate that in a general sense?
Do my best. Like, I mean, it depends on the person for sure, right? Like sometimes we're feeling things and it's actually showing up as a physical response in the body. The mind body is one. It's connected. And so that was something else I wanted to bring up as you were talking about your footballer there. But if there's something being held in the body, I love to bring people just to feel the feeling that's there and notice where it's in the body. And just be with it, right? Like, again, letting the thoughts just go. Don't follow the story. Let the non-judging acknowledgement be present. And just feel, and things shift and they move. And then you're able to start to come to a different place without having to think your way through it. You're feeling into what is there.
I like that because it kind of breaks the pattern. And I say this because, again, you know those people that, something happens in your life, well, it's this. And it's like, that's their go-to button for, hey, well, I'm going to just say it's this problem here. I'll point blame over here because this is what I've been doing. And yes, this thing happened, but I'm going to keep doing that. And unfortunately, wherever you point the blame is where you're giving the power. Right? And just on a neurological level, you're feeding that. Where
your energy flows.
Where attention goes, energy flows, I say, right?
And it grows, right?
Yes.
So
versus instead of, that thought of that, okay, so that would be, I guess, maybe the short answer of it then maybe is wherever, let's say it's an experience of trauma in the past when you're a kid and you feel it in your chest. That would be the work then. It's okay, feel it here. Don't think about it here. But just feel it.
For some people,
okay.
Right?
Yes, I know. We're I know this is very broad, but it's super interesting.
But I can simplify it though, right? Like the people that tend to need to come to trust their feelings are the ones that are in their head, right? Those that they do tend to think and they do tend to feel chaotic, like in their mind.
Yeah.
You know, they might not be sleeping well. That's
Yep.
a symptom that the body's saying something's off here.
That was me.
Yeah,
100%.
right? So we
All
think, and it's like, there's chaos here. Coming to feel is the medicine there.
Yeah.
And for other people, they're so stuck in their emotion and their feeling that they do need to come to the awareness of their thoughts. Yeah. And often it's those deeper subconscious ones that they're not aware of.
Right.
Because they're so
really
in the
good.
feeling. And the subconscious is the feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's the feeling.
The subconscious,
body.
the body. That's I was gonna say. Yeah. That's what I've heard. Is it's the two are the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's different medicine for different people, but and sometimes both of those things, right, or all of those things. And I have this, you know, philosophy that really I've worked with since I started my practice, and that's what the mind agrees with, the body responds to. Right, so
Can you say that again? I like that.
Yeah, it's powerful. What the mind agrees with, the body responds to, and so if your body's responding to something, the mind there has that pattern, that agreement,
and that makes so much sense because I mean, from my own experience doing the somatic therapy, lying there, it was like I'm in a super vulnerable position, but for whatever reason, I felt at peace. I felt calm. I'm like, oh, this is new. Okay, this is cool, right? And then I had the huge emotional response and crying for too long. I should say too long, but for a very long time.
Yeah. Which
so
is
that
the
makes
feeling, right?
Yes, and
feeling.
that kind of makes sense. You said it because I was, especially before, very scatterbrained, very think, overthink. You know, constantly turning my brain, couldn't sleep, having digestion issues.
Sure.
Right. And it's absolutely. And it's funny because then people go, oh, well, it's gluten or it's diarrhea or it's this, and not that there's a time and place, but it's like you could, you know, I always say if you could take in, not to dive into nutrition, you could have the perfect nutrition plan, whatever that is. Yeah. But if you're in a state like this, stressed, emotion, you know, you're having this emotional trauma you're not dealing with, whatever it is, or you're constantly thinking like that. Doesn't matter. You're not absorbing anything, and you're, you know, it's not going to be good.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's so much conditioning around what we put into our body from outside, right? So whether it be information, food, physical activity, and those things are important. Like 100%. Like what you put into your body, and I mean your mind body, is really important.
I think not to be understated. I think that's a very big one because we get influenced all the time on that. Especially, you know, the food. It's like, you know, you talk to most people, oh, what's healthy food? Most people know what healthy food looks like as a whole. You know, fruits, veggies, not processed, whatever. But I don't think people realize like that's one aspect. Yeah. And people know what a healthy living looks like in terms of activities, generally speaking. But I don't think people understand. So this is a good one is for you, what is that guarding? I call it guarding your... you know, being the gatekeeper of your subconscious. What does that look like, and what does it look like to feed that side? Yeah,
so I think, you know, that's what we've been conditioned to do, right? Yeah. Outside, fix, bring it all in, right?
Take the pill.
Yeah. But you know, obviously the work that I'm in, I fully believe that we have that self-healer within ourselves. And it is, the subconscious is this beautiful power source of that. Yeah. It's a beautiful access point to all of it. That's where those patterns and programs get, you know, programmed. It's where they become automatic. So to me it makes perfect sense that that's where we would go within ourselves, you know. And the subconscious is energy. It's not this physical thing we can literally take out and see. But we all know it's there. So really hypnosis and NLP and breath work, it's energy work.
Absolutely.
It is what we all are.
And it's funny because when you say energy work, 5, probably 6, 7 years ago, to go, okay.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to go back to the gym, right? But when you know, something that I had to understand is looking at, for example, when you look at an atom and you look at an electron, right? What the atom is circling, or the electron is circling the atom, what's holding it in that pattern? Energy. Yeah. And this is something, and this maybe for other people, you know this, but is that it's energy's holding it there. And we know you can't destroy energy.
Yeah.
Just transfer it. So when one atom combines to a few more atoms to make a molecule, and that energy's still there.
Yeah.
When you have more molecules together, now you're getting organs and pieces of skin, whatever. That energy's still there. So all we're doing is just making it bigger.
Yeah.
So when you say energy, yeah, again, I understand now, but even for somebody listening, it's like when hopefully they recognize is that, or help them understand is like energy, our minds are, our brains, it's all electrical signals, right? Our heart, electrical signals, right? Giving off all the time. So understanding that, yes, when we're talking about that, it's I used to think it's very wooey, but when you kind of look at it from a like small scale and you start scaling up, you're like, oh, right, that actually makes perfect sense. So that energy work is massive.
Oh yeah.
And it's not, I look at it as, not energy work as in like the Force from Star Wars, which I absolutely love, but being that like, no, like this is energy that our own bodies create.
Yeah.
Right. Which they can actually measure multiple different ways.
Yeah.
And how to use that to heal.
Yeah. I think, everything that's been created has come from a thought, right? Like thoughts create. And so what we think is important, or where we focus our thought energy is important. Yeah. And it does create shifts and changes within yourself. And I think that coming to internal thought, coming to yourself, coming to love and trust yourself more deeply is really where healing and holistic health is moving and opening and expanding to. Yeah. And it's so important, right? It's totally. Like, oh, I can listen to my body and figure out what it is telling me it needs, because it's always speaking to you. Go see your doctor, go have advice from professionals, 100%. But I really work with, you can listen and trust yourself more. And I think it's huge.
Absolutely. I mean, it's huge. It is a good example of that is Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about is, the placebo. The placebo effect. And it's like in medical field, just like, oh, it's a placebo effect. And it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me I can magically think that, they think that something's going to work and it'll work just as well. They this, but they do studies and they'll be like, hey, this pill is going to help you fix this. It's a sugar pill. Yeah. And like 90% of them or 80% of them will get the result and their bodies will make the exact chemical structure that they were supposed to get, even though it was a sugar pill. Oh, yeah. But it's just because of thought.
For sure.
If anybody, and it happens over and over again. So why not tap into that? Why are we... Yeah. And my, not to go down the conspiracy and whatever side, but it's harder to profit off somebody if you can fix yourself, other people can't make money off you. Yeah,
I think it's just an important part for people to come and remember. It's like you really are a self-healer within yourself. It's not to not go and listen to health professionals. Like, trust yourself when you need to go and seek outside help. Or suggestion. That's what they're there for, right? But there is an element where people are yet to trust themselves fully. It's like, come and trust, come and be. Around that placebo, something I've been saying for years is like, you are the placebo. Like literally, like you are. You can't. Like, absolutely. And it's so fun to explore that. And for a lot of people, it's new, right? Like, it's, even for me, sometimes I still find myself coming to new depths of myself, places, like facets of myself that I haven't yet seen. And that's that multidimensional nature that we possess within, right? Like, there are so many parts within ourselves, and different things will show up at different times if you're paying attention, and they're there ready for you. To move through, to become better, to improve your state of mind, your body, your health, your life. Totally. It's, endless. We're potential. We're unlimited in our potential.
Absolutely. And it's such it seems overwhelming when you say it, or could seem overwhelming. But I think the key there, at least for my own life, is to look at your track record. And I mean, if you don't have a track record, we'll build one.
Yeah.
Start meditating. Start seeing where you can go with it. Start manifesting things. Start just putting those intentions there, and that are goals. You know, a better word is maybe goals is like have those goals.
Oh,
put your attention to those goals.
Yeah.
And when you start doing it over and over and over, and then all of a sudden, eventually it comes, and eventually it comes. It may not be the exact way, it may be a little different, but it comes eventually.
Yeah. Oh, I think you touched on that before, where you're like, I wouldn't come and see you just once and think, and it's huge. Yeah. Like that, it's so true. It's like let go of the expectation of what that's going to look like and how it's going to happen, and trust. Like feel it, connect with the energy of it, visualize with it, like see it.
And that's something that I always, and I'm always still trying to learn, and is the when. Like we don't have a Simon Sinek talks about this. He's like, we have no control over when things happen, and not in a, like to take away your power, but just the idea of like if you are meditating on getting a new job, getting the promotion, yes, meditate on that. What does that look like? When how good it's going to feel when you have that. How thankful you are for having that. Dr. Joe talks about. He talks about feeling it now when you're out of the meditation, being grateful for that you already have it.
Yes.
So do that, but you still have to do those things, right? Yeah. And we don't have control over when, right? And that was something that was hard for me, and I was like, "What? Yeah. Are you kidding me?" But then it was like, "No, right? It makes sense. Like sometimes these things come in a surprise."
Yes.
And sometimes, and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And other times it takes a while. But if you just kind of put that aside, it's the same thing with the fitness journey. And that's what Simon Sinek was talking about. It's like, if you could work out every day. Yeah. And when will you get in shape? You have no idea. But eventually you will.
Yeah.
Eventually you will. 100% of the time you will get in shape if you just keep doing it.
For sure.
So this is a long-winded way to ask me, what are some things you do daily practices to make sure that you're in that good state, that you're in that, because you mentioned it earlier, talking, listening to your body. Yeah. So for example, I've kind of heard both sides of that in an extreme way. One way being like, right, I'm feeling this way. No, I don't want to do that because this and this. Okay. And then other times you're like, oh, I'm going to eat this, or I'm going to do this because I can listen to my body, and you can kind of feel and see the difference in the decisions and not. So I guess my question is, how do you make sure you're very in tune with yourself? And is it something that you truly need for yourself? Or is it something that you've been sold and told you need?
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely come from the other place.
We've all been there. We've all been both. Yeah.
Personal training space, it is definitely a different lifestyle and a different mindset for sure. So I've definitely lived in that world of, I have to have this, and this, and if I eat this meal plan, then I will. And there's definitely some beauty in that. Like there's some action and some discipline that you learn. And
so not to be discredited that. It's good. Yeah, there's definitely value there.
I think that for me, I try and just keep arriving at a place where I'm dancing between 3 different places. Okay. So taking action in the direction of my goals or my dreams, my desires, whatever it might be, right? Yep. Trusting it, and then creating it. So there's this dance between those 3 elements that I come to. And I'm human. Sometimes for me, where I fall off track will be in the action space in certain places. But with more work, you become more self-aware, right? Yes. And so you trust that self-awareness, and then you create the energy and the feeling and the connection with where you want to go, whilst also acknowledging where you're at. Yes. Yeah. So taking action, like taking stock of, I'm not really committing to, drinking my water lately, and I'm feeling tired now, right? So there's that. I got to take action. I acknowledge where I'm at. I'm trusting myself, but I'm not judging myself for it. Yes. Yeah. And now I'm going to create that. Yeah. So that's really how my whole mindset will operate. I like that. I move through different flow with different practices, but and again, it comes to this trusting what I need at different times. It's not always the same. Currently, my practices look like meditation. That's probably the one non-negotiable for me. I'm always meditating. Some days it's only 5 minutes. right? Some days it's an hour.
We're the same there. For me, that's my it's my rock.
Yeah, it's huge. I also have the benefit of, being in quite a meditative state in the work that I do.
Yeah, that helps.
So it's, I'm in that space a lot.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's great. Breath work. And I will flow with this. Sometimes I'm doing super ventilation work, which is like Wim Hof breathing.
Yep, very cool.
Sometimes I'm doing more breath of fire.
I've done that. Very, very cool.
Yeah. And then there's another shaman's breath that I work with as well.
Yeah.
So I just move through those. So currently I'm a little off track on my breath work, which is something I identified this weekend. I'm like, ooh, I've slid off that.
Yeah.
And again, not to give myself a hard time, but just to notice that when I'm doing it, I feel better, and I need to realign with that.
Yeah.
Create that. Yeah.
I think I like what you said there is that you feel better when you're doing it.
Absolutely.
And it's something I think you have to say out loud and say mentally.
Yep.
Because it's easy to just not.
Yeah.
It's super easy to not.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
But when you have that, it's like reinforcing that, like, right, no, I forget, right, I feel better when I do this. I feel better when I do this. And then you've kind of said it earlier, and you've just kind of been dancing around it a lot, is the self-trust.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Is like how massive that is. And that's where everything, in my opinion, whether it's relationships, business, whatever you want to get into, it all starts with yourself and self-trust. So if you don't have any self-trust, well, where do you start, right? It's so hard. So that's where an easy way for people to deposit into that self-trust bank is like, and getting leverage on themselves sometimes to go like, right, no, I do really feel better when I exercise every day. Cool. Like for Emily, I know that's big for her. Is exercising almost every day is like critical for her. Great. For me, it's meditation. I must.
Yeah.
For a couple other things for us is like we don't look at our phones for the first 2 hours in the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like as best as we possibly can. There are some times when life hits us and things, but most of the time, mine's up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But for the first 2 hours, I won't look at the phone, right? I'll maybe put on music when we go work out, but again, because we started noticing, I don't feel very good.
Yeah.
I got a headache. This, and we say it out loud, and we say it to each other.
Yes.
Another one is social media. Is like, okay, like we took a 3-year hiatus, both of us. We're like, nope, we're not doing nothing for 3 years. And it was great. It was because we both noticed. Yeah. I don't feel good on this. Yeah. I don't feel very good about myself. I feel, all these negative emotions that I'm feeling. I feel like I want this and needing that, and my life, comparing. Yeah. So pull back.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that that for me was a big realization I had, many years ago, is how often I was doing things because I thought I had to, because someone else expected me to, whether it's society, workplace, relationship, being the kid's mom at school, like that expectation of like you have to show up a certain way.
You gotta be the pack meetings, you gotta do this, you gotta volunteer, and it's like
no, hey, let's check in here with myself. Like, do I need to do that? Like, and sometimes we do have to do things, but it's also important to check in with yourself and know that it's okay to say that's not for me right now. Yeah. And you don't have to give a reason. Yeah. Right?
And this is something that me and Emily are talking about more, is because we want to show up for more people. Yeah. Which is amazing, and be able to help more people and to grow and to be able to continue to do that. Sure. Part of that is saying no.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, part of it is saying no to that thing that even though we're like, oh, and you kind of feel guilty, whatever, but in your head, you don't, or in your heart, you don't actually want to do it. Yeah. So...
Yeah, I think alignment is a word that comes in there. It's like, is this in alignment? Like, does this feel like it's in true alignment with me? Right?
Is it gonna, a good one for me is it gonna fill your soul?
Oh,
right? And if you're like, oh, if I'm gonna like walk away going like, this was so awesome and I feel good about it, and maybe I didn't meditate that day, or maybe I did meditate, but I can already feel my head getting foggy, right? Is this going to help clear that, make me feel energized? Yeah. Am I going to feel neutral after this, or am I going to be drained after this? Yeah. And it's kind of like, okay, if it's, first one and all of them are green lights, do it. Yeah. That's a must. if it's a neutral, that's kind of my method. Is if it's a neutral, okay, well, how many of those neutral, where's my energy level at? And I can sit and kind of weigh the scale.
Yeah.
But if it's something you feel is going to just be draining, for whatever reason, it's okay to say no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But just, I think the key is just making sure that you're doing it, it's not, especially if you're feeling drained, like it isn't, I'm feeling drained, okay, well, I'm going to sit in front of the TV and do nothing for 3 hours. It's okay, well, let's go back and take stock of the things that you love to do and that you appreciate doing that fill you up.
Yeah.
Did you exercise today? No. Did you drink enough water? No. Did you meditate? No. Okay. Did you do, did you learn something new today? No. Okay. Like, so, if you've checked all those boxes, in my opinion, that's my own personal thing. Once I've checked all those boxes that I'm like, these are things I have to do.
Yeah.
And that I love doing and I need to do them and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Yeah. We'll watch a movie. I love movies. Let's do it.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, in my experience, when you take care of yourself first, you're able to show up for your family.
Yes.
Then your work, community, and then, well, that ripples out to the world. And really that's what I do this work for, right?
Yeah.
It's like if every single one of us can come and do the work within ourselves and start to create more high vibrational states, it ripples out, it shows up in our lives. Like our outside world changes when we change from within, right? It just does. It does. And then it ripples out to community, it ripples out to the world, and it is the way we're going to create world peace and
totally.
love. Yeah. And it's a journey, but it comes from within each and every single one of us, and just doing that every single day in the way that you need to, and knowing that it can change, that it will, because that is the only constant is change. It's the only thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really, what is that's a good point, and I think people need to hear that again, is that change will happen no matter what.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? So
it's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. So and then on that too, a good point of a good example of the, if I change myself and I'm living in that state of love and gratitude as best as I possibly can. Yeah. Well, because I've heard, I can't change others. And it's like, well, that's true and false. Have you ever been in a room where, and I know you have, but most people have, been in a room where you step in, there's two people you're having a bad day, but that person's just having a great day and they're laughing. Yeah. And they are not like giggling. They are like belly laughing and rolling over themselves because of whatever, something that happened, a joke that was said, doesn't matter. You naturally go and you start laughing. Yeah. They've done studies on this. They did videos on this where there's a guy on a subway. I watched one and it was this guy just sitting there and he started howling this like ridiculous laugh. The whole subway is looking at him on this train, and then eventually the whole subway is just howling. It's huge. Because it's that energy, right? And it is contagious. Yeah. Right? And it can heal. And everybody's been around people that why do you like them? I don't know, I just like being around them, right? Like that energy is there and it's tangible and we can feel it. Yes. It's just you have to be attuned enough and present, like you mentioned before, is present enough to feel that. And being present enough doesn't look like this on your phone. Right? Yeah. Or, constantly freaking out over certain things. So there's definitely a way to build a life like that, which is so amazing. Oh yeah. I did want to ask you one more question, and it's about relationships. Okay. So, what do you do to have some of the dogs? Yeah. Okay. Bucket's having a dream right now. Yeah. She's meditating over there. Yeah, I love it. She's chasing the squirrels. She's in dream state. She's happy over there. Yeah. She's chasing the squirrels in the dream. That's what she does. I love it. That's awesome. But what are some things that you guys do together to continue to make sure you guys are connecting, and your check-in, if you will, or your daily habit? Yeah, it's interesting that this is a question you asked because as you know, relationships are always evolving and changing and shifting, and in my relationship right now, we find ourselves finding it extremely challenging to have time, right? Like the kids are in preteen and teenage years, and their sports schedule is quite intense, and we both have
businesses
Yep.
and, you know, other commitments and whatnot. So time is really hard to create sometimes. And that's just reality for us. So just speaking to it is what we'll do to create that connection, and carving out what we can in our week, and just being dedicated and committed to that time. And right now that time looks like 90 minutes a week together, but that's it. Like that's all we can do for one-on-one time.
Yes.
Right? With no kids around, and being present, right? Like that's our time space right now.
Yeah. But you know what, it's not to be underestimated that, because not many people do that.
Sure.
Most people don't. They put it aside. They continue to add more, or we're so busy. And versus like, no, we live a full life. Yes, we have a lot of things going on, but what's most important? Yeah. And me and Emily, it's kind of our hierarchy is like, I'm the most important person in our relationship. Yeah. And she's equally is the most important person in our relationship, being that like we take care of ourselves first. Yeah,
and that's where I was going to go with this, right?
Yes.
And that's a piece that Rob and I are, you know, going into another depth right now. Is, you know, we've been together for 20 years, right? So I was a teenager when we first got together, and
I was
so
like 12, like
yeah, well, I was 19 when we first were together, and you know, there are, you know, in recent weeks there have been some of my own deep work where I've dived in for various reasons. There's just been things like energies coming up, and I'm like, okay, there's something coming here, something more I'm stepping into, I'm growing into, and I don't know what that looks like yet, but I trust that whatever's surfacing energetically for me is ready to be healed in some way. And so I love that I'm able to answer this, because I'm not in the thick of figuring it out. That's come to, I'm not being consistent in myself, and neither is Rob. And so we aren't able to be consistent with each other in that appreciation, right? Like I'm not being consistently appreciative of myself and like committed to what I need. Like there's my meditation, but that's kind of been it of lately, right? Other things have trailed off because I've been doing too much or whatnot. Like again, human. And I share that with every client that I work with. Like I am no better than you. Like I'm in the journey too. I have my own work I do. And
I think that's so big to, not to cut you off, but it's big to help people understand. It's like, this isn't out of a place of, I'm sitting on this throne and here you do it this way. I hope people don't take it that way, but just, it's like, no, like I'm in the thick of it too. The only difference is like, I've got some experience, have some tools. So it's, you know, a good analogy is like not to go that way, but a leader in battle. A true leader is at the front with everybody, and hey, this is how we're going to do it. And they know, because they've done it, and they have the experience, they have the tools, they know the strategies, and they're continuing to do it. Not in the back going, you guys do that, and I don't know, right?
And being honest enough to say, I've dropped off on my tools, and this is my experience, right? And being able to share that. And I've done that lots, right? Like life happens, like, you know, with kids especially, like you get into a good rhythm, and then season ends and it's like another rhythm starts. You're like, okay,
now we gotta adjust again.
Right. So there's that constant adjustment, but committing to yourself and appreciating yourself first allows that to be in relationship. And that's you know, I think that's a really, again, important to come back to the self, right? Relationships also are beautiful expanders and teachers, right? Like what is showing up in relationship is often, well, where are you not showing up inside yourself? Where are you not, you know, meeting yourself in your own needs? And expecting the other person to give it to you. It's like, actually, you can give it to yourself.
And you know what it does is when you, because, you know, there are times, I will say, in relationships where you're like, I can't find it.
Sure.
And that's why you have your partner. But that can be, and not that your partner doesn't want to, or hopefully your partner wants to and loves that and is happy you do that. But in a perfect scenario, and ideally, it's the idea of like, I'm going to find the self-love or self-trust, or I'm filling my own cup up first. Yeah. And now when I pour into yours, it just magnifies it.
Absolutely.
And it magnifies all these other emotions that I was feeling. So if you go there, Tony Robbins talks about that, if you relationships magnify emotion. So if you're going to this relationship feeling empty, not loved, not cared for, well, like you said, and that's actually really cool, is like you're not doing it for yourself first. And now you're trying to go to them to say, hey, give me this. Yeah. But if they're doing the same thing, or maybe there's a little different, but they're looking at you going, well, give me that. And you're like, well, what the heck?
Sure.
Right? Versus, like you said, was I was using the analogy of filling up your cup. You got to fill up your own cup first. Yeah. Because if your cup is full, you can pour it onto everybody, you people in your lives, and then have a leftover for you and your partner. And what a beautiful thing. Or in reverse, rather, your cup is full. Fill up your partner's cup. Yeah. Those are going to overflow onto your kids. Yeah. And then everything else in your life, and in that order. And I think sometimes parents, and I've been guilty of it. Yeah. In different ways, is put the kids first. We gotta do this for the kids. We gotta do this for the kids. Yeah. Oh, the kids this. And I've said it myself, and I've heard, and I've done it, and now realizing, like, wow, like that was terrible, because I didn't put energy in my own life first, then in my partner, which is the next most important. Yeah. Kids are gonna be fine. And what you notice, and I've noticed, is when you do it in that order, the time. So yes, you don't have 90 minutes. Yeah. But I'm sure it's a wonderful 90 minutes. Like, I'm sure it's not like,
it's just
you go, when is this going?
We're not counting it down. Again, it feels expanded, right?
Exactly.
It feels expanded.
And it's something you remember, and you're present. So when you're present, again, it feels expanded because you're so present in that moment. It feels big, and you remember it, and you make that memory. Versus half filling up your cup, not really being present there, being on your phone half of the time when you're at dinner or having a date or whatever it is. Yeah. Only watching movies during your 90 minutes together, which doesn't really make sense if you're doing that. But unfortunately, that's what a lot of couples do. Their time together is in front of a screen, and they're giving their attention to the screen. Yeah. So where's the attention to each other?
Yeah, it's not there, right?
It's not there.
Yeah. It's as we're talking here, that the journey of knowing myself has really been what it has been for me, and my introduction to this beautiful space within via hypnosis that changed my life. I started to see that I was here. Like that's been my experience in my life journey, is that I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard, and I really had a sense of being invisible from outside, which made me feel like I was invisible inside, right? So that's been my journey that showed up in our relationship, and we've been through so much, and we've really, we have a beautiful relationship, but that has been a big piece, right? Like from my own experience. Rob has his own, self journey experience in his own way, with his own set of limiting beliefs or thoughts or expectations, whatever it might be. But for my own, it's been coming to know that it's okay to be who you are, and that you get to give yourself what you need, and then you can still do what you do wonderfully well, which is take care of others. But in saying that, I wouldn't be in this beautiful work that I'm here to do without that experience, right? So
there's the blessing in getting kicked in the junk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is why I love this name of this. It's so great.
But it's true.
It's important.
Yeah, it is, and it's so good that it's one thing that you recognize that. And that was kind of my message with all this, is like, if you look at life, when life hits you, if you look at it as like, oh, I'm hit and this all it is, it's going to be terrible.
It's a curriculum. It's a learning.
But if you look at it as like, wait, there's something on the other side of this. Yeah. There's something on the other side of this. it's not going to, it doesn't mean that the problem goes away,
Mm-mm.
right? It's just that now you go, wow, there's something here, so I'm going to keep diving into this.
Yeah.
And I think the key, like you've said before, is the work you do, doing that type of work.
Yeah.
Meditating, being present, doing all those things. That way when life does hit you with that, it's like you're well equipped. And instead of it knocking you on your ass and you don't know where to go, you take it on the chin, or you take it between the legs, and you're like, well, that's fine, and then we just keep moving forward, right? And you learn and you grow from it.
Yeah, I think, one thing I'd love to share, and I don't know how we're doing for time here, but is, perspective shift that I've found extremely profound, is when you start to see that life happens for you, right?
Yes.
It's all happening for you. Many of us walk through life going, it's happening to me. Like, poor me, we're in this sort of victim mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it, right? It's part of the journey. Like, and we will fall back into that. Like, totally. I still do from time to time. It's like, with, parents or siblings, it's like, blaming them for, and then I go, hey, hang on. But I have this self-awareness, and able to reflect and make that shift, right? Again, it's those three places I dance with that I keep coming to. That trust, the creating, and the action. And aligning it in the way that would be better for me, right? Knowing what's right for me, at that time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this was so great. I mean, we could keep going for another hour.
Gosh.
I swear to God,
I could literally talk all day. It's fun. Conversations like this are fun, and this is the first time I've ever been on a podcast, to be honest. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to chat about all the things that are just, it's how I live.
Absolutely, and it's so wonderful to see that and to hear. I think is kind of the message. Well, there's so much wisdom there that you've unpacked, but just understanding, like you said, that it is a dance. It's not a straight path.
No.
It's you're dancing, you're moving, you're twisting, and things happen, and you get hit, but you keep moving, and you find that, and you're constantly just shifting and growing, and you're constantly moving towards that version and that life that you want, and that way you want things to be. So I think that's amazing. How can people find you if they do want to reach out, or if they do want help?
Sure. So you can just look up my website, which is Transform, and it's spelled trance as in TRANCE, the number 4 ORM.com. So that's my website. It's probably the easiest way to just connect with me. You can connect via Instagram, Facebook, email, phone. Whatever you fancy. And on there you have your you can get the newsletters for meditations. So highly recommend it. They're very good. Thank you. They're recently new. I used to hold live Zoom Mindful Monday calls at 7 p.m. and there wasn't a lot of growth happening, and I think sometimes you can be stuck in a time that doesn't work for a lot of people. And so I decided, I'm going to shift it to pre-recorded sessions. And they get emailed out every Monday morning. Perfect. And you can sign up. They're free.
That's awesome.
Well,
thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate you and the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate you and for creating such an awesome space to talk about the real things, right? Like, absolutely. Just being human and not afraid to just be who you are.
Absolutely. Well, we always hug at the end of the show.
Oh, yay! I love a hug. That's awesome. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time of your day. Hopefully you're learning from these episodes, as I know I am, especially with these interviews. They are so wonderful. If you want to support the podcast further, please like and share. If you haven't yet, you can go on Spotify and rate the show. That always helps. You can subscribe on YouTube. And then lastly, you can go to lifepurposely.ca, sign up for our newsletter there, where we are sending out weekly thought-provoking ideas and ways to help you live your best life and to live with more purpose, and tips and strategies that we find change our lives. So thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.